Hi, I'm Steve, 49, personal trainer based in the Isle of Man in the United Kingdom. And this is week 4 of my Achilles tendon rupture recovery. If you haven't seen episodes 1, 2, and 3, it might make sense to rewind a little bit and go back and see them. That'll give you a bit more background about what happened and the initial decision I had to make between going the operative route or non-operative route. If you haven't seen those, episode 1 can be found here. Okay, so this is week 4. If you remember last week in week 3, I'd had the operation and I was heading home, and I think I'd already had a fall on the ferry on the way back home, and I was a little bit worried that I might have re-ruptured the Achilles literally as within 24 hours of the operation. Okay, so fast forward a week. I'm now back in Manchester again. Today is 2 weeks post-op, and it's been a week of two halves. So let's at the start of the week. I don't mind admitting I was very down. I think the enormity of the injury itself and the road to recovery being so long really hit me hard this week. I'm normally a very, very active type of guy. You know, I'll do 10 to 15,000 steps a day. I train most days. You know, I'll throw some cardio in here and there. I'm just always active. And I think certainly in the first couple of weeks after the injury, your mind is busy trying to do the right things at the right times. Then obviously I had the decisions to make with regard to the operation and things like that. And then obviously after the operation, my mind was busy with regard to getting back home, getting settled, trying to keep things ticking over at work and stuff like that. So I think after having dealt with all that, I found at the start of the week, the wheels pretty much came off. You know, I'm normally working on the gym floor. I do have a little bit of online work, but I'm primarily a gym-based one-to-one coach. So obviously there's no money coming in. The bills are still coming in, and you know, there's that constant battle of finding the money to pay the bills. On top of that, you know, it suddenly dawned on me just how long a journey I've got ahead of me with regard to getting back to full training. And I'd set some pretty lofty goals for the next couple of years. So, you know, the reality hit a little bit with regard to they're not going to be achieved now, or, you know, if at all ever. You know, I'm 50 this year, so I'm well aware that time is ticking, and, you know, these goals are a little bit time sensitive. So, you know, it's definitely the enormity of that. You know, and I've even at night, because I'm not moving much during the day, I'm getting restless legs. You know, just as you approach bedtime, legs are on, you know, twitching all the time. You know, that raises anxiety, and then when anxiety goes up, it affects your sleep, and then when you don't get good sleep, the next day you're grouchy and grumpy, and it's tough. It really is tough. And I found certainly last weekend and Monday and up to probably Wednesday, particularly tough. I was having some pretty shocking thoughts, and you know, I'm quite glad I've snapped out of that. Reason I have snapped out of that is because I've had great support from the Manchester orthopaedic team. If you remember last time, obviously I'd had a fall at home and had a fall on the ferry, and I'd spoke to my surgeon's colleague. Obviously my surgeon's on leave at the moment. I'd spoke to my surgeon's colleague, and he'd given me 3 options. Option 1 was to go straight over the next day and see him. I thought that was a bit knee-jerk. Option 2 was to let it settle over the weekend, see if the pain and swelling decreased, and then go from there and make a decision the following week. And then the third option was to do nothing and just kind of sit tight and hope for the best. So he rang me back on Monday. Now, to be fair, I did absolutely nothing over the weekend other than elevate my leg and ice the back of the knee, and that obviously did bring down pain levels quite considerably, and the swelling and inflammation came down as well. So in the time between those 2 phone calls, Mr. Karski, who is the surgeon's colleague, had spoke to Mr. Clough on the phone, and they decided it wouldn't do me any harm at all, if need be, to go over at the end of week 2 and have the back slab taken off, have the tendon reassessed, check the wound, you know, the incision from the operation, and all being well, go back into a boot. Now, in the time over the weekend as well, I'd been resting my leg. The back slab had started to disintegrate rapidly. There was a crack in the back slab after 2 days. Now, the problem is when a back slab cracks, the edges become quite brittle, and then obviously when you're elevating your leg and you're placing it on the chair, that just basically crumbles the plaster. So what had happened over that period of 4 or 5 days between phone calls is that the back slab was offering me very, very little in the way of support. So when Mr. Karski gave me the option of coming over today for that assessment brought forward by 9 days, it was the overriding decision, basically, because the back slab was failing. That was the reason why I went for that. So that's where we're up to today. I've just literally come into Manchester today. Mr. Karski did a full assessment. A couple of little tests he did were some resisted plantar flexion. So he basically put his hand there, and I had to put my heel against it and then push toes into his hand. And that showed a really solid calf contraction through the gastrocnemius, soleus, and the Achilles tendon as well. And then the second one was to turn over onto my front, turn my leg to 90 degrees, and literally just test for tension and make sure that the tension was enough in the tendon to stop the foot flopping down. And that was fine. I've got full movement in my toes. I've got a little bit of nerve damage, I think, in the inside of my big toe and the toe next to it. But that should go in time. But yeah, he was very, very happy with the test that he did to recheck the tendon, ensure it hadn't re-ruptured. And then also he checked the wound out. The incision site was nice and clean. They decided to take the stitches out there and then, and they cleaned up the dry blood that's around the area, and it looked really, really nice. I was quite happy with the incision marks. I think when they settle down in a year or two, they'll hardly be noticeable. And that's pretty much it. So I'm now back in the boot, which is great. That cast was really quite demoralizing at times. I'm now back in the boot. I can take this boot off 3 or 4 times a day. I can air my leg. I can clean my leg. I'm not to clean the wound for a couple of weeks. That has a dressing over it, but I can clean the rest of my leg now. And I'm in a much better position because I can just basically take the boot off during the day, practice my range of movement drills that he's given me, which basically are from neutral to plantar flexion back to neutral. And then it's too soon for resistance band stuff yet, and that can come in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. So that's where we're at. Like I say, I'm sat in a hotel room in Manchester again. Another trip over, only 2 weeks after the operation, but we're making progress. And that's why I say it's been a week of 2 halves, because that black cloud that was hanging over me at the start of the week is now starting to lift. I've now got a protocol to follow. I've got 6 weeks in a boot, and I have to sleep in the boot. The boot pretty much only comes off in a controlled environment at home when I'm doing those little rehab drills. But it's still a protocol. I now know when I can go to clinic-based PT. I now know when to bring in resistance band exercises. I now know, pretty much I've got the whole next 12 months mapped out for me. So all being well, and I must state that, because this injury has its risks when it comes to the rehab. All being well, things are moving in the right direction now. Now, like I say, the week started off in a bad place. Now I think moving forward, and if I can get back home in one piece this time, I can, I'll take another week off work. Then I can look to get back into the gym. I bought an e-scooter, as you're aware. And if I can get back in the gym on the knee scooter and start moving about, then I'll be in a much better place mentally then. And I can start training my upper body. I've done bits at home this week with dumbbells, but I'll be able to get back into on machines, which are very stable. I'll be able to hopefully increase the output quite quickly on the upper body, and then go from there. And I know that once I'm back training, I'm doing something positive, my mental state will improve massively. Now, here's the interesting thing. Up till yesterday, I'd had no meeting at all with an Isle of Man-based consultant. Now, yesterday I met with an orthopedic surgeon who was expecting me to turn up in the boot still. Obviously, I hadn't told them that I'd been across and had surgery privately. So when I turned up yesterday, obviously the first thing he noticed was, where's the boot? So I said to him, I said, I've done a little bit of research. I had a bit of intuition. Things didn't seem right. And I took it off my own back to go across, speak to a private consultant who, after a lengthy debate and more scans, and looked at my lifestyle, looked at my hobby as a bodybuilder, looked at my body weight, looked at the size of the gap where the tendon had snapped. All these things pointed in the direction of surgery. Now, if I hadn't done that, yesterday, the meeting with the Isle of Man consultant pretty much confirmed that I'd be in a bad place for the rest of my life. We had the conversation, and I couldn't fault him yesterday, to be fair. I could not fault him. He basically said that the system has failed me. So what had happened is, when I'd been initially assessed by A&E and I'd been put in the cast, and then I went back 2 days later and put in the boot, nobody marked me as urgent. Now, with the Achilles, if you need an operation, it's best done in the first 3 weeks for a better outcome. Okay, it's got to be done while the area is still quite fresh and the break is reasonably new. After that, it becomes time sensitive, and he confirmed that yesterday, and he basically said, even if we wanted surgery now, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So I'd have been left basically in a boot with a very poor healing quality, bearing in mind the size of the gap. It would have probably healed long, and there would have been a massively reduced level of output through the Achilles. Now, this gobsmacked me. If I hadn't just decided on a whim to come over and get a second opinion, I'd have been in a really bad place, not only physically, but mentally right now. Because if someone had said to me, you're never going to be able to train again, or you're never going to be able to do that to a good level again, that would have absolutely killed me. So to hear him say that yesterday, well, it just made me realize how lucky I am and how good it is that I've researched it all, and I've spoke to people in the business, in the industry, and I've thankfully done the right thing when I did. Now, he did say to me that 90% of people who have an Achilles tendon rupture will heal just fine in a boot. Unfortunately, I'm in the 10% that wouldn't, and that being a heavy guy, a big gap, the place where the tear happened in the Achilles, the fact that I would probably have gone back to the gym and tried to do something and re-ruptured it. There was a number of factors that led to a bad outcome. So for him to say that yesterday, A, was quite reassuring, knowing I'd done the right thing and I'd been across and I'd had the surgery. But B, it was mind-blowing in a way, because it could have been me that was left there hearing that bad news. So, if anyone can learn anything from these series of videos, if you're in the same boat as me, if you're not sure, get a second opinion. Because that second opinion has changed the quality of my life moving forward. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. Now, I'm not saying I would have been in a lot of pain for the rest of my life, but I wouldn't have been able to do what I enjoyed doing on a daily basis. And that's bad. That would have been taking away what I love. So that was quite mind-blowing in a way for him to hear that. For me to hear that, sorry, from him. But yes, so I'm over today, and we've knocked on a notch here now. We've progressed again, and I'm delighted. So that's where we're at now. We've come towards the end of week 4. Like I say, I'm back in the boot, which is reassuring, because even if I do have a fall now, I've got more support. But also it means that I can get air to the leg now when I want. And if I do get a bit of anxiety and I want to release that tension, I can take the boots off, I can get air to the area, I can clean it, I can make sure that it's all in a good place. Okay, so just a little update before I go. So as you can see here, I'm allowed to weight bear. I'm certainly not going to be pushing it for the time being. But that's obviously, most of that limp is coming from the fact that that boot is a lot higher than this bare foot. But I can put weight through quite easily now, but bearing in mind, I'm in plantar flexion. Okay? So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. Now, obviously, day to day, if I'm moving about, I'll be using the crutches or the knee scooter. But that's where I'm at now. 2 weeks post-op. I'm just walking now without crutches. So I think I'm in a good place. I've done a lot of research. I've spoke to a lot of people on forums and things like that who have had this surgery, and I think I'm doing really well here. One other thing I want to add before I close, I mentioned briefly that I was contemplating using research peptides to try and speed up the recovery. I've decided to do that. I've spoke to a couple of people, world-renowned people who are in the industry dealing with this kind of thing on a regular basis, and they've told me that it's definitely worth a try. So I will be using BPC 157 and I will be using TB 500, and I'll be following the protocol that's been set out for me by one of these guys that I've been speaking to. It's not cheap. It's quite an expensive protocol. But I'll try it, and hopefully that'll speed up the recovery time as well. Low risk, apparently, as well. So that's where we're up to. So, in summary, a productive second half of the week, a tough start to the week, but we're moving in the right direction now, and long may that continue.